Hi everyone, I'm Callie. Welcome to You So Can. Today we're talking about joining seams. Okay, very simple concept, but sometimes can drive you up the fucking wall. All right, but let's take a look as to how we join these bitches. Okay, everybody, so we've got our fabric here, and really just think of this as you're just essentially just sewing together two pieces of fabric. The only thing is matching it up so that these two seam lines basically look like it's one continuous line. Sounds simple enough, right? Okay, well, it can be a little challenging, and it does take a little bit of practice, but that's okay. Okay, really there's two, maybe three ways of joining seams, and the biggest difference is basically what is done with the seam allowance and how it's pressed. So here we have the seam allowance pressed open, and here is the seam allowance pressed to one side. Now, what you can do, and really all it is you just kind of matching up that seam line and kind of making sure that they are going together. Now I like to pin on either side of that seam just to help prevent things from moving about. Now that's pretty cut and dry for the one where they're pressed open. Now there's two different ways you can do it when it's pressed to one side. You can either have them where they're going opposite each other, or you can have it where they are going to the same side. Okay. Now, one thing I do want to point out is if, regardless of which way the seam allowance is pressed open, you want to make sure that stuff is joined up around the area that you are going to be sewing, not up at the edge of the fabric. Plenty of times I've, made sure it was joined, matching here, but down around where the seam is actually being sewn, it wasn't matched up. So we just kind of, same thing goes here. I just like to pin it so things don't move about. It may be a bit clunky when you've got the things where the seam allowances, both seam allowances are pressed to the same side, but that's okay. And then this one's the same thing. This one I really use when I'm, the rare times I make quilts or other things where stuff's not telling me where the seam allowance has to go. This one where they're going opposite ways is kind of a little good because they kind of just butt up against each other. And then we just sew it, just pin it and sew it. And then that way everything's kind of even as well as you're going across. It's not like a big, it can be like a little bit like a big lump when you're going. Now I'll probably sew on this on the other side. And yes, I did mess up attaching these pieces, but that's okay. So probably I do like, if I can, so I'm going to move these pins over to here. I do like, if I can, to sew from the seam allowance side to the non-seam allowance side. It seems like there's less things get moving, because then the feed dogs aren't jacking up, where things are at. So if those pins aren't, that amount of pin isn't enough for you, pin the shit out of it. It's your project. All right, so let's sew these up, press them open, and we'll see how it goes. All right, gang, so here we are. We got everything sewn up and pressed. Okay, so here we are with the seams pressed open version. Let's see if you can see this. That is pretty damn close to fucking perfect. I mean, might need a microscope, but that looks spot on. Just wait, and here's how it looks like from the back. I did do it from the back as well. And you can kind of also tell from the back how things are joined up, because you can see it just looks like just kind of that fucker across. Okay, so here we go with the seams opposite each other. And you can kind of see here, it's a smidge off. So let's see, is that a smidge off? I don't know if that's focusing right. It may be like a millimeter off. And you know what? That's still fucking great, because you know what? Seams like this are usually in your armpit or in your crotch. And quite frankly, if people are calling you out for that, then they can go fuck themselves. All right. Here we got the seams. Both of them point in the same direction. You can kind of see, yeah, it's a little off. And again, yes, I fucked this up, but that's okay because it's for example purposes. But you can see, again, we've got maybe a millimeter off, okay? And that is still fucking pretty great. All right. Okay, gang, so joining seams not as scary or as intimidating as we thought, right? Right? Yeah? Okay. So what have we remembered? A few millimeters off. Fuck yeah, it's okay. Okay? If it bothers you, get the seam ripper, rip that shit up. Well, not really rip it up, but you know, rip out the seam and re-sew it. Pin the fuck out of it if you need to. It's okay. It's your fucking project. And quite frankly, if anybody gives you shit about your seams not matching up perfectly, give them the old, tell them they're number one. Okay? That's, you know, and if it's bugging you about how your seams aren't matching, practice, practice, practice. Use some scraps that you got and practice that shit. Okay? Progress. If you're making progress, doing a little work every day, you're going to be all right. Okay? Well, that's all I've got for the joys of seam matching today. Follow me on Instagram at u.sew.can. Share with me your makes, tag me in your makes, or just use the hashtag #USewCan. Like, subscribe, ring the bell, all that fun stuff. And, you know, thank you so much for stopping by, and be excellent to each other. Bye-bye.